So for the first time in a good number of years, 40k is getting a brand new faction added into the mix. It seems that the Space Dwarf squats really are returning, rebranded as the brand new Leagues of Votann. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about the rather big news of a new faction for Warhammer 40k. Though I suppose technically a returning faction, seeing as the squats went away around about 20 years ago now. As we talked about yesterday, Games Workshop basically put out an April Fool's teaser video that, unlike their previous April Fool's videos, I thought was actually making worth a video about, as it just struck a bit differently. There wasn't really much of a joke to it, to be honest, besides here's some models that aren't coming back. And to be honest, given that they'd both been rumoured, and they'd also resurrected other factions like Genestealer cults, the return of the squats did seem something that could be right up what they'd try and do these days, and now they've come back and basically confirmed it. Yesterday's trailer basically had a Space Dwarf boarding a battlecruiser, looking like an Imperial one that had basically been destroyed and its crew killed, and then basically showed the outline of one of the squats. I'll be honest, my guess was that I thought that they'd just have that as the April Fool's video, and then probably leave it a good few months or even a year or so until they actually announced their return, but it seems that it was closer than I was expecting, as they've basically gone and confirmed it the very next day. The way they've done that is basically a mini new teaser trailer and an article on Warhammer Community, fairly scanty on details, but basically another similar picture of that guy boarding the battlecruiser, but in colour as you can see here, saying that it wasn't an April Fool's, showing off one new model and a whole bunch of other silhouettes that we'll take a look at in a second. Here we have the model itself, reported to be one of the basic foot soldiers of the Leagues of Votann as the squats have been rebranded to. He appears to be equipped in a white armoured pressure suit, with what looks like a bit of a power pack on the back there. A fairly chunky looking model as you'd expect for a dwarf, complete with a bushy beard. For the trooper himself, his feet are kind of interesting as well, really quite metallic looking stylised toes. I'm genuinely not sure if that's boots or if he's got some sort of fancy bionics going on. If anyone knows if that's a callback to previous squat lore, please let me know down in the comments. I'm not really too sure what to make of that gun, to be honest. It doesn't look enormously similar to the vast majority of most Imperial tech. If I'd had to guess, I think it looks like some sort of energy weapon or heat ray. For a standard foot trooper, I think it does look very big and serious looking indeed. I'd be kind of surprised if that thing didn't have some fairly meaty stats, perhaps a high strength or maybe even damage too. He's also got a nice looking cog symbol on his right shoulder pad, accompanied by a few runes as well. I wonder if that might be the faction symbol, or whether that'd be that dwarf's head icon that we saw the other day. According to Warhammer Community, the release is still quite a few months away, but they do say that it's going to be coming out sometime later in the year. My guess would be after they've actually got round to releasing all of the other 9th edition codexes, although I must admit it would be a pretty troll move on Games Workshop's part to give squats a codex before Imperial Guard get one. I think the exact phrasing that they used was that it will be a solid few months to go before we get a look at their advanced force, which implies to me that they're still really quite a long way out. My guess is that, like when they relaunch the Sisters, they'll have a launch box where you get a whole bunch of models at a fairly reasonable price for them, and we won't even get the preview of those for quite a little while. It's not entirely clear how much they might shake up the established lore of the faction. The Leagues of Votann is the new name for them, and to be honest, I'm not really too surprised that they haven't officially relaunched them as squats. Kind of hard to see that as anything but a bit of a derogatory term for them, so a change did seem kind of inevitable. Apparently that's what they're known as formally, and they call themselves the Kin. In 40k's distant past, supposedly the squats were essentially destroyed by the Tyranids. That was their excuse when they initially decided to stop supporting their model line and to focus on the other factions that they had. I can only presume that the line was getting a bit bloated at the time, and they weren't getting all that many sales of Space Dwarves. It'll be interesting to see how popular they prove on their return. Otherwise, they have given us a few hints as to their lore. It seems that they split off from humanity at large a fair while ago, probably going down the same sort of route as things like Ogrins and Ratlings, developing under different conditions, maybe high-gravity planets or the like, perhaps. And being a lot more open to innovation and change, they've managed to retain a whole load of high-tech and several lines of technology utterly expunged by the Imperium of Man, considered techno-heresy. In terms of galactic politics, they are kind of in an interesting place. They have an uneasy relationship with the Imperium, they're not under direct control by them, so it is kind of an interesting idea in Warhammer 40k that you do have a race of essentially humans who aren't necessarily bad guys, but also aren't under the thumb of the Imperium and the Thrones of Terror. They'll basically happily team up to fight Chaos or Xenos, but it doesn't mean that there won't be wars or conflicts fought with the Imperium at large. In terms of alliances, I'd guess that might make them broadly under the remit of Imperial units. It sounds that despite their differences, It still seems that they'll have massively more in common with the Imperium than they would with Xenos or Chaos. As a race, as dwarves, they're fairly headstrong, as you might expect, and fairly science-loving with lots of reliable weaponry, though I do strongly suspect that as it's Warhammer 40k, they won't just be a happy race of space dwarves without any sinister features. I'm sure we'll find out that their regime is very brutal or twisted in a whole new and unexpected way. As well as the actual full colour model reveal, we've also got a whole bunch of silhouettes as well, which I would suspect is probably going to be the rest of the squad. Unless there's duplicates here, then it looks like this could be the rest of their 5-man squad perhaps. We've got one who's quite clearly got a knife and gun on the top left, some chap with a pistol and what looks like another close combat weapon in the middle, another one holding something like a grenade above his head, though it really could be anything as you can't really see any details, and one that appears to have a standard rifle and maybe a scanner sort of pack mounted on his shoulder. We have also seen from the artwork picture as well that one guy can take what looks like a plasma pistol variant and also a power fist, so it does appear that the Leagues of Votann technology hasn't entirely diverged from the Imperium. There's still going to be some marked similarities. So overall, I think that the reintroduction of the squats is perhaps one of the more interesting moves that they've made with 40k in a very long time. It always does feel just a bit weird when they have entire other factions pop up. I know they basically had established fluff and lore in the distant past, but it's not like they've taken any sort of front or centre stage in any of the lore that we've had up to now. I wonder whether or not they'll have any reason that they should have been sequestered away for a really long time and newly arrived back into the galaxy, maybe somewhat similar to Tyranids sweeping in from beyond the stars. Maybe they've been hidden away somewhere for a really long time. Or perhaps it'll be a bit of a retcon type thing that they've done with Imperial Knights, making them a lot more of an established part of the lore rather than just a backstory. Though that does mean a little bit of artificial retconning and crowbarring them back into the fluff when they didn't really exist there when it was written at the time. Certainly could be interesting in game as well. I wonder if you might be able to field these as a small allied detachment for Imperium, maybe in a similar sort of way to Harlequins. It makes me wonder just how big of a release they'll get when they drop as well. I might expect something kind of similar to the Sisters of Battle. Just as a guess, for a faction of Space Dwarves in 40k, I'd expect them to be pretty tough, pretty hard-hitting at close range, and I'm sure they'll reimagine a fair bunch of their classic units. I bet we'll see a trike of some form. In any case, really quite big news. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Is it a good thing that Games Workshop's resurrected the squats? Would they be an army that would interest you? Or is it a bit of a strange development for 40k's fluff? If we have any more news from Warhammer community anytime soon, I'll certainly cover it here on Auspex Tactics, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like to keep up with Games Workshop's news or releases. I'll most certainly be reviewing the Squat Codex as well when it inevitably comes out. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.